Welcome to the High Performance Herd. We're fortunate today to have Joe Myers with us, the president, partner at Lighthouse Transportation Services. Joe, welcome.
It's good to be here, David. Thank you.
So I always start this with, at some point in your life, you realized, man, I want to drive something bigger than myself. I want to be a leader. For you, when was that? What was that? What attracted you to leadership and building something bigger than yourself?
I really don't know if there was a time or a thing. I just feel like I played sports growing up, um, and I kind of feel like I was just maybe drawn to being that guy that wanted to maybe lead by example and just you know rally around people, and just try to get the best out of everybody I could.
Awesome. And what sports, Joe?
I played football in high school and baseball and all the way up, and I played a couple years in college.
Oh, awesome. And from that perspective, if you look at your own leadership in those early days, what did Joe as leader look like?
Understanding that everybody is different, that, I've got to be the one that adapts to them, not they adapt to my management style.
Mm,
Um, it's like coaching. You can push one kid, and the other kid you kind of need to maybe put your arms around. And it's the same thing I think I've taken in management. That there's certain people I know I can push, and there's other people where I got to be there to be a soundboard and be white glove type of put my arms around them, say it's going to be okay. And they need positive reinforcement a lot. And I find that out when I have my one-on-ones with people, and then once you get to know people, you kind of understand what drives them and what. But I do ask those questions like, how do you want to be managed? What do you
awesome.
want out of this? So those are good telling tales too.
Awesome. Awesome. If you would share with the audience kind of your Cliff Notes career, like here's where I started up until Lighthouse. Like, how did you get there? What was the path? Give us the short version of that story.
Well, I was playing baseball in college, and I hated school. I was not a good student. School was not for me. I wanted to work. I wanted to make money. I knew that playing baseball wasn't ever going to get me anywhere. I mean, I got to school and I got to do a lot of cool things, but I knew there was no like career in baseball. So I took a job with my brother-in-law at a trucking company where he was running a company and gave me an opportunity to come in and work for him. And I did that for about 5 years, and then I went to a company that's huge now, but it was Total Quality Logistics. I started there pretty quick, pretty early on. Um, Learned the brokering side. The other side I was on was asset. We had trucks, but we didn't broker. Um, Learned the brokering side. Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot, and then got to a point where I kind of wanted to just step away from that and do something else. And had an opportunity to join Lighthouse in 2017 as president, and I got some ownership out of the deal. Um, and it was probably one of the scariest things I've ever did, but it's been the most rewarding. So really happy I did it. But boy, it was scary.
And what was scary about it, Joe? What was the fear based on?
Well, I had been there. I had been at TQL for 16 years, and it was, I knew everybody. I wasn't really being pushed, and it was kind of just easy to come in and to get myself out of that comfort zone and bet on yourself to say, hey, I did this here. Now, can I do it there? Um, now you got to kind of put up or shut up. So
Well, there's always, it's funny because a lot of us have lived through that, including me, where you're at a big company, it's comfortable, your salary's good, you're getting some semblance of either pension build, stock options, something, and you're like, well, I can do this for 20 years. And the other side of that is scary. And is that
yeah,
what you're talking about? Like, oh, well, now I got to go figure this out, small company. And did you know who hired you at Lightbridge? Or sorry, Lighthouse.
I did know those guys. The one guy was my assistant at TQL early on. Um, but nothing's promised, and and I had a non-compete, so I had to sit out a year and um, kind of figure it out and figure out, hey, am I making the right choice? And when you're a manager, or when you're in, when you're in that high level position, your phone's constantly ringing. And when they turned that access off, my phone went silent. I wouldn't leave anywhere without my phone.
Yeah.
And for about 3 or 4 months, I was like, my phone doesn't ring at all anymore, and it's scary, and I didn't like it, but I knew it was for the best. It was the best thing for me to do at the time. Was to jump and go and see what I can do.
So talk about early days Lighthouse. You started. What was your role responsibility? What were you doing? What did Lighthouse look like?
Um, they hired me in as president, but they didn't need a president. They needed sales. So I found out pretty quickly when I got there that they needed revenue. So I picked up the phone and started making cold calls, and eventually started brokering again, and built a business that was, I think, the third highest in the company. And then kind of handed that off to some people, and then went back and started cold calling again. I locked myself in a room. It was a lot smaller. We were all, I think there might have been 10 or 15 of us at the time. Um, Pretty close knit group of guys. They've had some success. They've grown out of some offices, but still weren't quite, you know, where they where we are now.
So before we get into the big lessons, kind of that you learned about scaling, building a high performance team, how are you spending your time now as president at Lighthouse? What are the things you're focused on?
Basically, growth. Um, how are we going to get to where we want to be? Set goals, make sure everyone's kind of aware of our goals, where we want to be at, keeping the team kind of informed on what the plan is for maybe the next 12 to 24 months. That way you get them to buy in a little bit of, okay, we've got a common goal and this is how we're going to get there. I try to make them a part of as much as I can. Um, that way they feel like they had a hand in, which they do, to getting us to where we're going to go. But I still deal with a lot of other things. I think that's one of the things that I need to get better at is delegating.
Hmm.
Um, and I do think that delegating has got us to, we some success we've had over the past 18 months. We've grown quite a bit, and it was through the help of two people that we promoted. And those two people have really taken the things that I'm not good at, and um, they've just been great. It's hard to say, like, when you find when you find people who are really good at what you're not good at, and you let them run, and it's just like it's another tool in your belt that's like, dummy, you didn't need that this whole time. They were there. Let them shine.
Well,
So
it's
I guess
funny,
I'm just a
Joe.
slow learner, but at least I'm learning.
Yeah, no, no, Joe, and believe me, almost every entrepreneur slash leader I've ever dealt with had that same epiphany. And that the way I start framing it now is the path to the best team you've ever had is lazy leadership. That you have great people on your team, that I'm not having to do the work I used to do, that I'm now focused on, and you've already started to address some of that vision, values, expectation, and engagement. I'm no longer running the trucking company day to day. I'm
Yeah.
setting a vision forward. I'm telling people how I want them to act and behave. I'm setting really high expectations, and I'm engaging with everyone. Um, and that for that to happen, I got to have people that are better than me on the team. Is almost always how you get to a high performing team, and that's hard early. And you join the company. There's 14 people. You're like, no, I was doing everything. I was the top sales guy. I was the top dispatcher. I was the top everything. And that transition from I'm the day to day hero to no man, I have real heroes on my team
Yeah.
is hard.
No, it's 100%. You're 100% accurate. I would have never got this company to where we've gotten to now without the people that have helped get us there, that has shared our vision and able to do the stuff that I can't do, as well as they can do. I go to Stephanie and say, Steph, can you run this report? I want to know what lanes were this and that and she'll have it back to me, or I'll go to Kyle and say, Kyle, I want this to do this, and they do it way better than I ever did it.
So Joe, there's almost always a moment that we realize. And so you talked about promoting these two people, that they were there all along, but there's almost always a moment that I'm like, hey, it's heavy, it's scary, something's going wrong, or I just have an epiphany that like, man, I'm doing too much. For you, was it one of those or something else?
It was definitely I'm doing too much. I couldn't run sales and run the company. I couldn't run the floor and try to run the whole company because you get sidetracked with, oh, I got to figure out this and this or this when I could have Kyle do that, and then I could do the other thing. So, and they're just, definite. They're just a reflection of yourself, kind of doing what you want, but in their own way. And to be honest, probably better than I would do it
Hmm.
anyway, because it's like I was doing this job, they've been doing this job more than I have on the desk, that is. And they're like, hey, things change and these things are better. Why don't we do it this way? And I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense, because I get stuck in doing things the old way. And so much stuff has changed now with tech. And I'm not real privy to all the tech stuff yet.
So, and this is an interesting kind of lead into that, whether it's tech or people. Has Lighthouse used any outside resource to improve the company?
We are looking at some AI functions now, and we are looking at some other things. We haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I know that it's going to happen in 2026. I think we're just trying to figure out what's the best path to get us to where we want to get to, because there's so many different things that these companies offer, where it's AI dispatching, AI appointments, quoting, everything that we're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the best bang for our buck? And once we
Yeah.
figure that out, we're going to pull the trigger.
Well, it's funny, and I think Joe appropriate. I have a specialty trucking company that recycles telephone poles of all things,
Okay.
and they've done a couple things where they just hired some post grad interns and said to them, "Hey, beat our current dispatch team using AI." They've also said, we have some technology needs in utility yards to manage inventory. Let's use AI there. And the world today says, well, that technology's there. We just need to challenge ourselves in how we use it. And it's interesting that you guys are looking at that. If you look at that experience and your hiring, so like, hey, we need more of, I'll call it technology, capability, leadership. What what frames how you guys think about that growth forward? Like, hey, we need more leadership, we need new technology. What frames how you go about it?
The numbers. When our numbers are going to a certain level and our load count is getting to a point where we need more bodies, and that's where it's at now. We need more bodies. Is it cost effective for us to bring in someone that's going to sell, or is it better for us to go the AI route? So right now we've been looking to go offshore.
Mm,
We work with an offshore company that helps us with our hiring, and we have been using them a little bit more to kind of keep our costs down. And then they've been able to, kind of come in and do some of the work for us. Now our salespeople, I'm trying to get 1 to 2 a month as we find the right person. But there's times where we've hired 3 or 4, and there's times where we haven't hired any. I'm
mm.
not going to hire someone just because we have to have a body. We have enough help where we can kind of all chip in and get it done. We want to make sure that they're a good fit for Lighthouse, a culture fit, and someone that kind of shares the same values that we have.
And at Lighthouse, when you start to talk about culture or values, do you guys have those concretely described? Are they words that you guys have on a wall? Is it, hey, they're alive and well every day? Or is it less intentional yet clear?
Yeah, it's in a lot of our paperwork as far as like our manuals and stuff we use for training, things that we send out. It's not on the walls, but our core values are teamwork, service, um, transparency, and fun.
Mm, awesome.
And those are the things that we kind of live by, and not on the wall, but definitely out there for people to know that that's
Yeah,
how
I
we
mean,
feel.
they sound a lot like early days Southwest warrior spirit, servant's heart, and fun loving attitude. Where they're three, like, hey, we're going to go after it.
Yeah.
We're going to have fun doing it, and we're going to serve. And you guys had that kind of in transparency and other stuff. And I always frame on the wall, not that it has to be on the wall, but that everyone knows that it's alive and well. And then I think the challenge for most organizations is, do we hire, coach, and fire based on them? That's the difference in high performing team, that it becomes the magnet that attracts people, repels people, that it's alive and well every day. Would you say that those at Lighthouse are that you guys are hiring, coaching, and firing to them?
Yeah, I would hope so. I definitely feel like I'm very upfront. I'm very transparent. There's a lot of things in trucking and logistics that we cannot control, but being upfront and honest and transparent is one we can, and our effort is another one.
I
So,
snickered because one of those today is the cost of diesel, like
oh yeah,
crazy, right? I
yeah,
mean,
it
is this
is.
episode we're having this conversation? Diesel's
Yeah,
probably going up what, $1, $1.50 a gallon or something in the last couple weeks.
yeah, it was up. I think $1.13 last week.
Yeah,
It's
it's crazy.
crazy. Yeah. So being upfront and honest. So like I said earlier, I meet with everyone once a month, and I give them 30 minutes to talk. We go over whatever they want to go over, and if people are struggling, I let them know, like, here are things that we need to work on, and if it's over months at a time, I let them know, like, hey, if things don't improve by X, there's a good chance that we're going to separate. So if here's what I want you to work on. If this isn't the right job for you, just let me know, and I'll give you a day to, day here, day there to go interview, or if you want to, you want to leave, let's talk this through, because the last thing I want to let someone do is come in and say you're gone, and them just be out of a job. That's not my goal. That's not my intent. They took a chance on us. We took a chance on them. It didn't work out. Logistics is not for everyone. Cold calling is not for everyone. Let's try to figure something out. And I think people appreciate that approach.
Awesome. So you talked about kind of meeting with them 30 minutes, but if you looked and said, well, how do I align the team so everyone's pulling, rowing in the same direction, whatever the metaphor is you would use, Joe? How have you done that? What's the way you get everyone on the same kind of sheet of music?
Well, sharing our goals and our path, what's important to us, treating our carriers like we treat our customers, you know, things that are very important to me. I come from a trucking family. My dad was a truck driver. My uncles were truck drivers. We wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't have drivers. I could have all the freight in the world, but if I didn't have a driver who would trust me or call me, then I can't move it anyway. So we try to treat our carriers the way we would want to be treated. Um, as far as goals go, I'm emailing them weekly with here's where your goals are, here's where your monthly goals are, and we sit down and we go over that. Do you think you can hit this? What do you have in the pipeline? It's like, well, I've got this, this, and this that I might not have never known about. And so we might raise their goal, we might lower their goals. I think giving people goals that they have no say in whatsoever can be great in some certain circumstances, but demoralizing. Like if you're walking in and you know that you've got a frozen food customer that's only busy during school time and you're getting ready to go into your slow season for the summer, and I'm telling you, you got to hit X amount of dollars in the summer no matter what. How are you going to go into May, June, July, and August? Like you're going to struggle and not want to come to work. But if I raise your goals and say September, October, November, and then lower your goals to where they're attainable, we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
then the likelihood of us being aligned is a lot better. I mean, I try to give them a chance to have a word in for everything that we're doing that I'm trying to my vision at least.
Well, and Joe, that's well described in Lencioni's five dysfunction of team. Like, I got to be vulnerable, which you talk about your transparency, all that stuff. I got to build trust, but then I need to have healthy conflict so that I can get commitment. So,
Yeah,
this, hey, shared goals, understanding a conversation is they have the ability to have conflict with you. Like, hey, that doesn't make sense. Here's we are. And as soon as we give people the opportunity to do that, well, now they can fully commit. Now they can press forward. Now they can own the goal and
right.
press forward. Um, if you look at this, and we've talked a little bit about it, if you think about the hardest thing for you in getting the team to perform without your like personal involvement, how you handed to the two leaders, what's been the hardest part of that for you? Like, how have I elevated performance, and what have I had to do? What's hard about that for you?
Mm. At first, it was trying not to stick my hands in it and get involved. But now it's almost like all right, can we rinse and repeat this? Because now I want to get to a certain stage where, okay, we've grown 30% year over year, and my goal this year is 16%. But right now we're at 30% again, or 27%. And I'm like, I don't know. So I guess it's the worrying of, is this going to last, or can we do it back to back? And I guess
Yeah.
second guessing myself, like, really, is this really working this well?
Yeah.
I just, you always, I think as a leader, and when things are going well, I think especially in sales and trucking, you always expect that wall to kind of come crashing down. And so far, knock on wood, we've had a really good 18 to 24 months. And
And
now I
Joe,
want to make sure, can we keep going? Like,
and is there something underlying that fear? Like, hey, can I continue to find talent? Can we scale? Hey, will this dry up? What's the thing behind it? If you had to try to pinpoint it.
I, honestly, again, it goes all the way back to just kind of like getting the right people in place and running the right way and putting the things that are important, and then getting out of the way and letting us do it and run the way. Like, I mean, there's a blueprint to it, but it's not perfect. But still, like, if you follow these steps and do these things, we should continue to have success. But I'm competitive. Like, so when I go below 30%, or if we're below 20%, it's it's never good enough.
Yeah.
It's like I get the mail in the morning, I take it and I deliver it, and then I get back to the station and my desk is full of mail again. So that's how I feel with this. It's every week is I'm living week to week. When the weekend's on Sunday and I see what we did compared to year over year last year, that's done. I'm done, and now I'm concentrated on next week and how are we going to beat it again.
Yeah, I used to tell my teams, Joe, that there's this elusive carrot dangling in front of us, and that
Yeah,
like no matter how fast we run, it's the same distance in front of us. No matter what we perform, the carrot's still in front of us. And I said that there's a healthy component of that, and then
right.
there's an unhealthy component. Like we're never satisfied. We have to take the time and perspective to tell the team, like, hey, we grew again 30%. Awesome, keep it up. Yet, well, next year we're going to have to do the same thing.
Right.
When you think about that component, how have you given team the perspective of, hey, awesome job in 2025?
I think I'm the first one to tell people good job, and I'm proud of them. Um, I give a lot of people my own time. I don't golf. I don't boat. I've got, you know, I've got three kids. One's grown with his own kids, so I love to spend time with my grandson and my two kids. But besides that, I'm focused on work. And I think that's what kind of pushes me. Now, my wife might hate it because she's like, "Are you ever satisfied?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, but we just went to Mexico. I took we took our leaders and our sales leaders to Mexico, and we had 4 nice days of just you know
Celebrating.
celebrating, you know, having a little bit of fun, and and this is what it's all about. But then as soon as I was in the airport, I was like, okay, who's coming back next year? Like, who's going to be on the trip? Are you going to be back next year? Who's going to be with us? So, yeah, but I definitely feel like that's what helps me get to where I am because I'm extremely motivated and I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I have a boulder just sitting there, like
Yeah.
pushing me to be better.
So Joe, you've clearly, you've grown the company. If you talk about what it looks like today, Lighthouse looks like what today compared to when you started?
We ran like a hot dog stand, and maybe the hot dog stand might have been more, up to date on their things. Now, we're a company. We are a 70-80 million dollar company right now that's running and hires people, and we're an asset to our community. We do a lot for the schools. We volunteer at Ronald McDonald House once a quarter. I mean, we're a good part of Covington, Kentucky.
Awesome. As you think about the next stage of growth for Lighthouse and think, hey, here's what needs to change to make that possible. Here's where we're going to need to improve the most. What's the next phase of growth and what's most important?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to adapt with AI. We're gonna have to pick something. We can't just sit around and wait because if we do, everyone's gonna pass us. So we're gonna have to pick something sooner than later and get on board with it. Then we're gonna have to continue to hire smart, and then we're gonna have to open up another office somewhere else, which we're looking at. Now we just need to find the right people at the right place.
And if we jump ahead, same period, we'll call it 3 years, 5 years, and say, hey, success looks like this. how would you talk about that success? Success looks like.
Um, we should definitely have another office open with, I don't know, I would say at least 15 to 20 people. You know, I'd like to have probably 75 people. I'd like to have 75 total people in our corporate office and probably doing somewhere around 140 million, which I think is not too far out of the question with what we're doing, and the growth we've had.
And if you reflect for yourself for a moment and go, and here's how I'll feel leading that, how will you feel?
Hopefully, not satisfied.
Yeah. Not a surprise from what you've already
Yeah.
shared.
Hopefully, I still have the same boulder on my shoulder, wanting to be better than what we're doing. Wanting to be a $250 million company.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I always share a story leading a company that grew from 100 million to 220 million in a year.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, we had explosive growth for a handful of years. And I remember going to the Christmas party. I'd looked at numbers and go, man, we should have finished the year at 240. And
Yeah.
you kind of have that. And I literally had to go, stop it, go to the party and celebrate and tell everyone how awesome they were in
Yeah.
that year. Because it was an awesome year, but you can always look for here's the better. And I think those who drive growth, those who always want more, those who all want to win, that's part of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that drive and push. Yet, there's this perspective needed. If you pause for a moment, Joe, and go, what's the one thing I've learned about building teams, growing the organization from your time at Lighthouse that you would share with listeners? What's the one thing that you've learned about getting more from teams?
Um, I wish I would have asked for help sooner than I did.
Mm.
I definitely feel like that's what kind of sparked this whole thing. And what would have happened if I would have done it sooner? Um, Besides that, I don't know if there's a lot. I think that, I mean, I give a lot of my time to people, and I'm a pretty genuine person. So I think everyone knows how much I care about them, and I want them to succeed, so the company succeeds. So
And follow up on that, if you said ask for help, was that promoting the two people?
yeah,
Okay, so it was like, well, yeah, I need to elevate the team. I need to have great people surrounding. I need to delegate work. I need to hold people accountable for new chapters.
yeah, it's just being naive, thinking you can do everything and you're great at everything when you're not. Like, I know that I'm not the smartest person in most rooms, and I should have asked for help a long time ago. Because you just try to take on too much. It's like, oh, I can do it, and
Yeah.
really you can't.
If you look back at the Lighthouse experience, what's the one thing you're most proud of?
The 2023 Best Place to Work in Cincinnati. We we filled it out, and I'm like, I see all these companies that I know, and they have all these accolades. I'm like, well, we need to do something like that. So we signed up for it, and we sent one person, and we ended up winning. And my recruiter called me, and her name's Caitlin. And she's like, "We won." I was like, "There's no way." She was like, "No, we did." So I said, "All right, here's the bar we're going to. Bring it to the bar." And so there was a few people left in the office, and then a couple of the high, the couple of the management staff all met us there, and we took pictures with it, and we were pretty
Awesome.
happy. But
Awesome.
that's something that you can't pay for. It was our employees, filled it out,
Yeah.
and that kind of shows us, like, I think we are doing some stuff the right way, and we won that. And then 24 and 25, we were a finalist. We didn't win, but I'm just happy to be, in that conversation.
Awesome. Joe, if listeners want to follow you personally or the Lighthouse journey, where should they go?
They should follow me on LinkedIn. I put out something just about every day. I put out clips of my own podcast. I have my own podcast called Cup of Joe. Um, then they follow Lighthouse on LinkedIn, and then I actually started a TikTok, which kind of shows our day to day life. That's also called Cup of Joe, and they can see some of the things that we're doing and help be a part of it.
Thanks, Joe. Really enjoyed the conversation. Clearly, the things that you espoused, down to earth, transparent, some of your core values came through today. I appreciate the time. I appreciate you sharing the story of your growth and the growth of Lighthouse. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome.
Okay.